Oh, shit. All right. Hey, everyone. Let's see. We on here. Welcome to today's Program Yourself Thin podcast. Today, we're talking about minimizing the damage, which is a phrase I like to use for people when they are in holiday mode, vacation mode, off track mode. And there's other modes you could probably apply it to as well. But basically, it's when you're not 100%, when you're not being really great with your eating, your efforts, all the rest of it. And what it really speaks to is this concept of all or something. Right. So most of the time with dieting, people are really in an all or nothing mode, right? They're either doing 100% perfect, everything right, or they're doing nothing. And there's very rarely anything in between going on. Okay. So in Program Yourself Thin, we really build around the all or something philosophy. This is the concept. Yes, you can still be all, right? When the mood strikes, when the timing is right, when you're really focused and motivated, you want to do everything perfect, knock yourself out. Okay. Keep doing that. But the big difference is that you're never going to do nothing. Never again, never do nothing. Always be at least somewhat in the game. And so when we talk about minimizing the damage, that's what we're talking about. It's those times when you're not being all, right? Pretty much anything that's not all, we want to minimize the damage. And again, holidays, vacations, cookouts, special occasions, there's situations where you're not going to be perfect. All right. And so that is what we want to start practicing on, though, because we cannot be perfect, but we can also not go completely off the reservation. There's a phrase that's really applicable to dieters here. They call it the what the hell effect. And it's basically this idea that dieters, especially when they make a little mistake on their diet, they tend to completely just blow it all off and go way overboard the other direction. And they literally studied this. It's really interesting. It's a milkshake experiment they did. But long story short is dieters that screwed up what they were going to eat that day tend to consume way more than a person who wasn't on a diet who kind of screwed up they were eating. And so there is some force you're fighting against when you do this. When you get on a plan and you're doing really well with it, and then you do make a mistake, there really is this psychological feeling of what's the point? What it doesn't even matter at this point. It of course matters. It absolutely matters if you eat 2,000 calories versus 4,000 calories, right? There's a huge difference there, and it makes a big difference which one you choose. Now, the 2,500 calories may not feel like you're doing great, but compared to 4,000 calories, it's a home run. All right. So again, the concept of minimizing the damage is a way to approach this where, yes, I know I'm not being perfect, but I'm going to minimize the damage. Okay, yeah, I'm drinking a little bit, but I'm not going to get drunk. I'm eating some cookies. I'm going to get all the cookies. Having some ice cream, I'm going to get all the ice cream. And we start to get into this minimizing the damage mode, because what it does is that is a way to go from nothing to something, right? Instead of saying, oh, forget it, I don't care. We're saying, this isn't how I want today to go, but I'm not going to let it go completely. I'm a little off track. I'm going to have a couple cookies, forget it. I'll kind of start all tomorrow again, fine, but I'm not going to let everything go today, right? And that's the attitude. And what it's doing is it's a way to practice what I like to call is kind of this gray space mode, right? We tend to think in black or white, all or nothing. We need to start practicing thinking in the middle, right? Something mode is gray mode. It's kind of how I think of it. It's somewhere in the middle here. And so we get off track, we recognize it, we're aware of it, but we're not going to just throw in the towel, right? That's kind of the goal. And you can practice this in all kinds of situations. It certainly is obvious to practice it in like a vacation mode, holiday mode, extended multiple days in a row where you're probably going to be a bit off track. But you can start to apply it as well to specific dinners and situations. You might intend to have a real clean, healthy day. And then all of a sudden, a friend calls up and says, well, I'm having an emergency. Can we go out to lunch and talk about it? Right. Okay. I'm thrown off a little bit from what I planned on doing. However, I'm not going to go completely off track. Right? I'm going to minimize the damage. I'm going to take a little bit of damage on, but I'm not going to take all the damage on. And I will tell you, it's interesting. It's just popped in my head, but I used to watch a lot of UFC fighting. And, that is a strategy. Of course, you want to go into the fight and knock the person out. But sometimes it's a war of attrition. You know what I mean? Like, who can take the most damage? So we need to stop looking at this black or white, all or nothing kind of way of thinking about things and start to realize that what's going to affect your weight way more over time when you zoom out on a year is not how you did that week. It's how you did over the whole year consistently. And it's a lot easier to influence your eating by consistently improving it, by not making too many bad mistakes, right? Than it is to try and be perfect. And so it's like, what I'm saying on paper is really obvious and logical. The real challenge is how you experience it in real life. When you do make that mistake, it becomes illogical almost. You know what I mean? You could see someone else make a mistake with their thing, and you very clearly say, oh, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It doesn't matter. All the rest of it. You do it, and it feels like the world's ending. So that's the key part you have to understand, that when it comes to this, yes, on paper, logically, oh, well, if I make a mistake, just get right back on track. No big deal. That's logical right now. But when you actually do it in real life, you're going to get very emotional, and it's way easier to say, screw it, forget it. I don't care. Who gives a shit? This is never going to work. Blah, 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 blah. And we get into that mode. We can't get in that mode anymore. Okay. We need to, again, raise the bottom mode. We say, that's not how I wanted to eat. I'm frustrated. I shouldn't have eaten that. That's not what I wanted to do. That's okay though. I'm just going to drink some water. I'm going to have an apple. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to, no more. I'm good. A couple more and then I'm done, whatever. But again, it's staying in the game. That's the key thing. And I think that's going to support your weight more than anything else. Literally, I think more than anything else, the thing that is going to support your weight more than anything is the ability to stay engaged consistently. If you stay engaged 50% more than you did last year over this next year, you're going to lose weight. If you stay 100% perfect for the next 3 weeks and then quit, your weight's going to be the exact same next year. It's that simple. And so this is the big thing you have to keep reminding yourself. Because again, dieting is always getting you fixated on the days, the hours, the days and the weeks, right? And how you're doing in those moments. And any mistake feels like catastrophic failure. You have to zoom back from that and realize that your weight's really dictated by what you do over the year. And there's a great quote. I say it every day, I think, but it's basically that most people overestimate how much weight they can lose in a month and underestimate how much weight they can lose in a year. So again, this minimize the damage concept is because people say, oh, if I allow mistakes, I'm going to make tons of mistakes. I'll never get the results. And that's not true. Ironically, the more perfect you expect yourself to be, the worse you're going to do. I know it sounds counterintuitive sometimes, but again, when you hold yourself to this level of perfection, as soon as you don't reach it, it feels like failure. And even if you're doing 50% better, you still feel like a failure. So we need to zoom out and see the big picture and recognize that what we're chasing is not perfection. We're chasing improvement. And improvement can come from minimizing the damage. If when you used to get off track, you all of a sudden eat 2 pints of ice cream a night, and now you're only eating 1 pint of ice cream a night, that's an improvement. And it's going to show up in your weight over time. So again, keep this in mind. Again, this is something you've got to practice, because this is one of the easiest ways to come face to face with your subconscious mind and recognize the power of your emotions. Because as I said, logically, everything I'm saying is making sense and you're agreeing with it now. But when the time actually comes and you are in the mode of being perfect and then you make a mistake, you're going to feel firsthand just how powerful your emotions can get. So again, this is a process, a bigger process than me just telling you what to do and you're just doing it. And it's more about me sharing this with you and you starting to realize it and seeing it in your own life and then starting to adjust it. Okay. Because for the rest of your life, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have times where you kind of ease off the gas a little bit. You go on vacation, you go on holidays, or you just get off track for whatever reason. They're going to happen for the rest of your life. There's never going to be a time in your life where you're just perfect for years at a time. That's never going to happen. Okay. And so the more you can absorb those mistakes and realize they're not a big deal, let me just minimize the damage. Let me get back on track quickly. That's what's going to change everything. So if you want to go deeper into this concept or want some support with this way of thinking and approaching your weight, click the link in my bio or go to Program Yourself Thin. Get the free hypnosis session I made for you. There's a training there right now, making a new training that should be up this week. And go check that out, because I am here to help you out in this approach. I think you'll find makes a lot more sense than dieting. So, What's up? Ann says, lost my mindset, was 1,000% focused, lost 20 pounds, went back to anything goes. I self-sabotage. Help. I mean, I hate to say this to you. I get in this argument with people all the time. I don't refer to that as self-sabotage. Okay. So let me explain this because this explains everything I'm going to say here today. But I don't believe when you're doing really well and you lose 20 pounds and all of a sudden you get it back to what you always did. I don't think that's self-sabotage. I think it's that you don't know what to do long-term. Okay. So all of you, if you're like most dieters, what happens is you have your normal mode and you have your diet mode. Okay. And when you go into your diet mode, yeah, you're 1000% focused. You're doing everything perfect. That's what diet mode is. That is the problem. The problem with the diets is not the nutritional philosophies. So again, I don't care if your plan is keto or yours is Weight Watchers or yours is Mediterranean, yours is intermittent fasting. I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter what the specific nutritional philosophy of it is. It's the diet mindset you're approaching it with. That is the problem. And it doesn't matter which diets of those you pick. You start each one of those diets exactly the same way. That's your problem. That's Ann's problem. The problem, and I know this is going to sound crazy. The problem with Ann is that she was 1,000% focused. The problem with all of you is your diet mindset. Whether you do any of those diets, you're 1,000% focused. You're changing everything in one day. You start on a Monday perfectly. Doesn't matter if it's keto, low fat, low carb, vegan, carnivore. It doesn't matter what the plan is. That's not the problem primarily. The main problem is how you all are approaching it. And you've been trained to think like dieters, which is exactly what Ann's talking about. You jump into it 100% focused, 1,000% focused. Everything's about the plan. Everything's about counting the calories, tracking the food, preparing food, not eating. It's all, everything's about, it's obsessed 1000%. The only thing that matters to me is the food, diet, losing weight. That's the problem, folks. You can't do that forever. So you didn't sabotage yourself when all of a sudden you burnt out and went back to what you always do. It's the same path you all do every single time. It doesn't matter what diet you do. Isn't that the revelation, folks? That it doesn't matter if you do Weight Watchers, keto, low fat, South Beach, Jenny Craig, Slim Fast. It doesn't matter. You get the exact same pattern everything you do, which is that you start strong and end quietly. It's always the same process. So again, it's not the nutritional philosophy. It's the diet mindset you've been trained, brainwashed to have when you approach this. So again, Ann, you're going to live your life, Ann. Are you telling me, Ann, that the only thing in your life you got to think about is your weight? Are you telling me you don't have other things in your life that are requiring your attention and energy? I know you do. And so when all of a sudden those things come up in your life and you got to deal with them, you don't have 1,000%. You don't have the energy to be 1,000% focused anymore. And of course, you have no ability to not be 1,000%, right? You're either 1,000% focused or 0% focused. It's not self-sabotage. It's a lack of information. You all have learned you all know how to be overweight. That's your normal mindset. And you've been conditioned to be overweight. It's not that hard. But then you've been trained to be a dieter. Never along the way have you learned how to be a thin, healthy person. A thin, healthy person is not 1,000. I'm not 1,000% focused on my eating and my weight. I'm not 1,000. I'm a parent. I'm a husband. I'm running a business. You know what I mean? I got family, friends. I got stuff I'm doing. I can't be 1,000% focused all the time on my weight. And my plan doesn't require that. Again, my promise to my clients is that you're going to get to your goal weight and stay there for the rest of your life on near autopilot. That's what I want for you. Listen to that one more time. I don't want you to just lose weight. Ann lost 20 pounds dieting and then put it all back on. Went back to anything goes. You didn't go back to anything goes. You went back to your normal. Let me put it this way. You all, listen, if you're overweight right now and have been for any period of time, more than a couple of years, you have an overweight mindset, meaning that if you just live your life, right? If you're not fixated on your eating or your working out or your weight, if you're just living your life, you're overweight. The food decisions you make, the lifestyle decisions you make, the way you're living, the way you're eating, the decisions you're making are keeping you overweight. Okay. And it feels normal and natural. It's just easy for you to do. This is what you do. It's routine. Now, when you go into a diet mode, dieting is not a mindset. It's an anti-mindset. It's not a mindset in and of itself. No one's a dieter forever. You're a diet for a little while until you're going to get your weight down. right? So what happens is dieting is an anti-mindset in the sense that it's not a mindset, because what it does is just says no to your regular mindset, right? So your regular mindset, let's have a donut. No. Let's have some ice cream. No. Let's have a piece of pizza. No. Let's have some fries. No, 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 no. Down to your goal weight. But now we got a big problem. You can't keep dieting, and you don't want to go back to the overweight mindset. But what are you going to do? What did most dieters do? It's estimated 85 to 98% of dieters that lose weight on a diet put it back on. And I believe the core reason for this is because you have never learned how to think like a thin, healthy person. You diet yourself down. At best, you diet yourself down to your goal weight. And then what does everyone do? They put the weight back on, because you don't know how to think, live, eat like a thin, healthy person for the rest of your life. You've never learned that. You all have never learned that. You're so far away from learning that you never even think that's the problem. I don't know what you think the problem is, dieters. Do you think the problem is that you don't know the nutritional things of what you should eat? Again, we can always learn with nutrition, so I'm not saying that isn't a component to it. But I would make a bet that almost all of you pretty much know what you should and shouldn't eat to at least get the weight loss started. Let me bring it one step further. If you were a robot and you could just type in what you're going to eat all day and you would actually eat that way, you wouldn't have any problem losing weight. See, it's not a nutritional knowledge problem primarily. It's a behavioral problem. You don't know how to change your behaviors long-term. And that's Ann's core problem, that you don't know how to change your behaviors long-term. You know how to jump into something 1,000% and make your entire life and reality about that thing for a little while. And then you can't keep that up because life comes calling. And never did you learn, how can I achieve my weight loss and stay there on near autopilot? You've never even thought that. So how is it going to happen? Just spontaneously? No. But it's not that hard either. Again, I'm a hypnotist, but I deal with the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind handles all your habitual thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Your eating, folks, all of your eating is done on autopilot. You eat the same amount of food every day, and you do it on autopilot. It's like brushing your teeth. That's a behavior that you installed, and now you just do pretty much on autopilot. Well, your eating's the same way. So it's not that you sabotaged yourself. The truth is you never learned. Again, if you never played the piano and I sit you at the piano and I say, okay, play me a song, and you can't, I'm not going to say, well, you're sabotaging yourself. Come on. Because the sabotaging implies that you know how to do it, and you don't. You dieters know how to do some crazy shit. Let me put it another way. You're going to like this, Ann. I've been using this example a lot lately to make it crystal clear why you're never going to lose weight on a diet. And this describes Ann to a T exactly what she said, is that dieters are like people that signed up to run a marathon, right? So you just signed up to run the Boston Marathon. You're at the starting line, but in your mind, you got the hack. What's the hack? I'm going to run it like a sprint. I'm going to get so far ahead of everyone in the beginning that I'm going to win the race. And so you start the race, the gun goes off, and you go as fast as you possibly can to get ahead. And for, I don't know how long, a good quarter mile, eighth of a mile, half a mile, you're in first place. You're smoking everyone. Look at you, first place. And then though, you can't keep it up. You run out of energy and you pass out on the ground. You don't even finish the race. Never mind winning the race. You can't even finish the race. You dieters are like sprinters in a marathon. And if you're going to sprint a marathon, you're never going to win it. It's not the right strategy for the goal you're looking to accomplish. And dieting is it's not the strategy for what you truly want, because what you want is not to lose weight. Ann is not happy that she lost 20 pounds and then put it back on. All of you listening to this have lost weight and put it back on. You're not happy you lost weight and put it back on. You're upset you put the weight back on. So your goal is not to lose weight. It's to live at your goal weight for the rest of your life on your autopilot. That's the ultimate goal. And yet you never articulate that. You never, ever say that out loud. You never think that. You've been literally brainwashed by the diet industry. No, the diet industry is not your friend. The diet industry is a branch of the food processing industry. What, Jim? What? Yes. Weight Watchers was owned by Heinz. Jenny Craig was owned by Nestle. Atkins Food Products is owned by the same company that owns Auntie Anne's Pretzels and Cinnabon. Slim Fast is owned by the same company that owns Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream. These companies do not want you to lose weight and keep it off and eat healthy and not eat their bullshit food. They want to take your money when you want to lose weight, fill your head up with rocks while you're trusting them, and then ultimately just get you back to go and eating their food. And so you've never even thought. That's the key. I know you can't think like a thin, healthy person. I already know that. The point I'm trying to make is you never even consider that to be the core problem. And so if you're completely missing the core problem, how are you ever going to fix it? That's my message to you. Now, I know that might sound negative and discouraging, but here comes the encouraging part. The good news is this, that if you buy into this concept, if you do believe that your mindset does impact your weight or has some big part to play, if you do believe that, the good news is that you've never learned how to influence it. I know for a fact, because I've been doing this over 30 years personally and over 20 years professionally. I see and I'm going to say literally, I see literally no good mindset training to live at your goal weight. I see some okay stuff that gets near it, but I see nothing good. And I can ask you, who would you learn how to have a thin, healthy mindset from? Don't expect an answer to pop up in your head. And so my main point is this, that if you've never learned how to think like a thin, healthy person, and if you've struggled with your weight for a long time, please, my main message to you is stop blaming yourself. Because you're doing like what Ann did, where you say, oh, it's my fault because I didn't stick being 1,000% to this. You can't be 1,000% to it. It's not even an option. You can't sprint the whole marathon. I don't care how motivated you are. You just can't do it. You physically can't do it. Your brain's not built for that. You're not built to completely change how you eat in one day at all. It's overwhelming. And so every diet is exactly the same. Never mind the nutritional piece. Let's look at the behavioral piece, folks. This is the secret. If you look at any single diet anyone's ever suggested, what unites them all together is the mindset the person approaches it with, because every diet starts off the same. 100% perfect on day one. I'm going to be 100% perfect until I lose the weight. No, you're not. No, you're not. It's not your fault. You're not built to do it. This is a dieting bullshit idea that's been implanted in your head by the food industry to sabotage you. That's the sabotage. So I would stop blaming myself. This is a message to all of you. Stop blaming yourself. You can only blame yourself if you knew what to do. Oh, I know what to do, Jim. I'll just be 1,000%. No, you can't be 1,000%. That's the point. You have to learn how to automate a lot of this stuff. Just like you train toothbrushing into your subconscious mind and now you do it just naturally, you have to reprogram your subconscious mind to think, live, and eat like a thin, healthy person. It's not rocket science. It's not the easiest thing in the world either, but it's certainly not the hardest thing. And good Lord, considering the amount of energy you all give to weight loss, why not dedicate a little bit of it to something that's really going to serve you instead of this temporary fix that dieters are just so obsessed with? It's a temporary fix, folks, right? There's a better way. So again, if you want more support with this, though, click the link in my bio and go get the hypnosis session I give you. It'll really help you. But he says, this is so true. It's very emotional. When I mess up, it makes me feel like a failure. Yeah, again, that's very important. I think dieting is absolutely a psychological operation by the food industry. Dieting doesn't work, folks. We know it for a fact it doesn't work. That's the big excitement of GLP-1, that for the first time in 100 years, we finally have a plan that works. So, I mean, again, that's not true. There's other for myself that works, but whatever. But dieting doesn't work. It's official. Dieting doesn't work. And it doesn't work. It's a bullshit concept that was put there by the food industry to sabotage you, to brainwash you, to make you unsuccessful. Diet industry is a recurring business model. They get you every year, every couple of years. And then the main business they're selling is all their shitty food. They don't want you to stop eating it. There's no motivation. There's no incentive for these companies to teach you a real strategy to lose weight. And there's every incentive in the world to get you confused so you keep failing. So you keep blaming yourself if you want to, because what are we saying? And I'm so, thank you, Ann, so much for writing that, because the key thing Ann wrote here, let me just read what she wrote one more time. Lost my mindset, was 1,000% focused, lost 20 pounds, went back to anything goes. I self-sabotage help. I don't believe that. Because my question is, how are you going to stay 1,000% focused? For how long can you stay 1,000% focused on your weight, folks? Think about your life. Think about your responsibilities. Think about your day-to-day reality, and then ask yourself the question, honestly, how long can you stay 1,000% focused on your weight? And what you quickly find out is not long, because you've got other things in your life you have to do. And this is such a beautiful way to encapsulate why dieting doesn't work. It's not sustainable. It's not built for the real world. It's built for you to do for a short period of time to lose some weight. And that's the result all of you get. The exact same. It's so obvious. You just have to look at it from a slightly different angle. Every diet's exactly the same because of the way you're approaching it. Hope that helps. Tracy says, wow, I'm glad I came across your podcast last month. I wish I found you 30 years ago. This is incredible. I've started to apply your words and this is helping so much. Slow and steady, but I'm just in wow after years of diets. Thank you so much. I listen to you every day to work. Thanks from Kamloops, British Columbia. Thanks, Tracy. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm glad you found me too. And that's why I'm here. Again, for me, I say this every day. This is a mission for me. And my father died when he was 54 of a heart attack. I was 9 years old. So, I mean, it's for me, weight is life and death. It's way more important than just like, again, looking good at the beach or wearing a bathing suit or skinny jeans. And those things are great, but it's much more than that. It's really about living as long as you can and having the best quality of life while you're alive, and looking great. You know what I mean? That stuff too. Looking great, feeling great, wearing the clothes you want to wear, being the person you want to be, which brings it to the point. You program yourself, then we take the weight loss, we wrap it in personal development, which is another suggestion I give you. Just trying to lose weight as the main goal usually isn't enough. Again, I beg you folks, please open your mind up that maybe you don't know everything about weight loss. The irony is dieters are like the most, it's like they get the worst results, but they're the most convinced that what they're doing is perfect. It's the strangest thing. I mean, it's literally, you won't believe me, but again, just take it for what you want, but I'm a master hypnotist. Okay. I've been a professional hypnotist for over 20 years. And I am telling you that dieters act like people in a trance. And this brings me back to my main point that as a hypnotist, I thought I was going to hypnotize people to lose weight, but it's much more dehypnotized. It's waking them up from the trances that they're in. And most dieters are in a diet trance. Now, what's that mean? It means they're not being logical. They're walking around almost like they're just hypnotized, like the corny cliche stuff in movies and stage shows. You're not thinking straight. Because in what world does it make sense to keep trying the same plan that hasn't worked for 30 years? In what world would it make sense to try something that hasn't worked 50 times a 51st time with no adjustment? Like, I'm all for resilience too, you know what I mean? But what world does it make sense to try the same thing 50? How many times y'all try Weight Watchers? How many times you try the keto plan? How many times you try paleo, Atkins? I mean, it's the same thing over and over and you get the same results each time, if not worse results each time. And yet so committed to it. Now, I believe the reason you're committed to it is because you just have no alternative in your mind. In America, if you think about weight loss, you ask 1,000 people how to lose weight, you're going to hear diet, surgery, injections. That's it. You're going to hear mindset. You're not going to hear any mindset, to the point that you literally, again, you couldn't even name a diet or a diet guru who's going to show you how to train your mindset. Outside of me, I mean, you'll hear some vague ass talk about, they all got a mindset component. Don't get me wrong. Weight Watchers has their little mindset thing, but it's like kindergarten. I applaud them for trying. Great. But it's just not up to the task. So my point is that if you're struggling with your weight, instead of saying, oh, I know what to do, I just got to get myself to do it. I just got to approach this 1,000% every single day. No matter what's going on in my life, I need to be 1,000% focused on my weight. No, you're never going to do that unless your whole life you become a weight monk, a weight nun. Dedicate your life to your weight. That's all you do. Quit your job, move out of your family. You just go focus on your weight. You're not going to do that. Okay. Because your weight is a means to an end. It's not even the main thing anyways. Your quality of life's the main thing. And most of you with your weight and your diet mindset are just chasing a number. And you're doing it in a way that makes you miserable and overwhelmed. And that's why you stop doing it. Why do you think you quit dieting, folks? Why do you think you stop? Why do you think Ann stopped? Do you think it's because she got tired of losing weight? You think she got tired of being 20 pounds lighter and wanted to put it back on? No, it has nothing to do with that. She got overwhelmed. She couldn't keep up 1,000% focus. And she finally, again, just like the sprinter in the marathon, at some point, your body gives up. Your mind gives out. You got nothing left. And that's you dieters. And again, the idea that I should be 1,000% every day is literally the equivalent of saying I should just sprint through the whole marathon. Oh, I got the hack. I know how to win the marathon. I'll just sprint the whole way. I'll run faster than everyone the entire time. I'll sprint it out. Sounds good on paper, but in reality, you can't do that. And that's where you're at with the diet. And it's harder for you with the diet because you've been trained literally your entire life that that's what you should do. But again, it would be, it's the equivalent of like, imagine there's a philosophy of marathons that says, let's sprint it out. And there's a group and they follow this philosophy. And for 100 years, they've never finished a race. But you keep trying that. Why? Because theoretically, it just sounds perfect. That's the fastest way to run. Of course, I'm going to win the race that way. You know what I mean? But it lacks perspective. It lacks the sense of where you're at, what you're looking to do, what the real goal is. And that's how most you dieters are approaching your weight loss, which is important to understand, because don't take this as critical. This is not critical. I'm on your side here. But the first step you need, if you have any chance of getting influence over your weight, is you've got to start approaching this differently. You cannot approach your weight like a dieter and succeed. Not going to work. DJ Radco says, I start panicking if I don't get my Coke when stressed. Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a whole nother piece. It's just that again, dieting is literally designed by the food companies. Dieting makes no sense. I'm a hypnotist. If I wanted to sabotage people with their weight, I would come up with a diet. It's so elegant in its awfulness. It really is, because as a hypnotist, I know the easiest way to get you obsessed with something is to tell you not to think about it. Okay. So again, if I tell you not to think about something, don't get your energy ready. I want you to not think about what I'm about to say. Good. Get yourself ready. Okay. Don't think about a yellow banana. Don't think about a banana. Don't think about a banana. Right? What are you thinking about? Okay. So now I'll go to a diet. Every diet, don't think about carbs. Don't think about eating for 16 hours. Don't think about sugar. Don't think about dessert. Don't think about carbs, whatever. And so you get obsessed with the exact thing you're trying to reduce. So there's problem number one. Problem number two is that you're completely changing your behavior 100% in one night. So you go to bed as a carb addict, you wake up never eating carbs. How's that work? Behaviorally, it doesn't work. And what it feels like, again, the way to really understand your weight and why it doesn't work is to look at it as a behavioral issue. And the easiest way to understand that is to imagine that you're going to wake up tomorrow and you're going to do everything with the other hand. You're going to use your phone with your hand. You can brush your teeth with your hand. You use your computer mouse with your hand. Now, technically, you could do it, but every time you do it, it's going to take a lot more energy because you can't do it on autopilot. You have to think about it, and you're going to feel your energy draining. And that's why dieting is so hard, because your eating is happening on autopilot. Your thinking is all this stuff's happening on autopilot, and now you're going to micromanage it, and it takes a lot of energy to do that. And you can feel your energy just zapping the first couple of days of your diet. And so what that means is you get overwhelmed. You get overwhelmed and depleted, and eventually you have to quit in order to get yourself back to normal. So, and on top of that, then as well, you also take away all your main emotional management strategies, right? Because most of us, we've been trained since birth in this culture to use food and sodas and drinks and all sorts of stuff, but especially food and consumption things in our mouth. We've been trained to use as our main emotional management strategy. So we get stressed, run to the soda. We get, we get tired, run to the cookies. We're celebrating, run to the pizza. So again, we condition these things. So all of a sudden you start your diet and you just 100% black or white, like a switch, just turn yourself into another person. It just doesn't work that way. And it's not your fault. It's not a you problem. It's a strategy problem. Just like if I told you, if I was world famous, marathon sprinter coach, and my students had never finished a race, I hope you would look at that and say, it's not because I haven't found the magical person that can sprint the whole thing. It's because it's a shitty strategy. It's not because the people I taught are weak-willed. They don't have the foresight and the fortitude to do this. It's crazy. And again, so I don't know. And you've been trained. That's the thing. And again, my clients, they're all type A perfectionists, overachievers and all the rest of it. So when you lay out this concept and this idea that you can just change everything all at once, if you're really serious, if you're really motivated, well, they love that, but it's torturous. It sets them up for literally, this is the saddest part. This is why I do this every single day. It sets people up for a life of feeling like a failure. Because in their mind, and this is the phrase, this is you if you say this phrase in some form or another, that I know what I need to do. I just need to get myself to do it. I know what I need to do. I need to sprint the whole marathon. I just need to get myself to do it. That's the hard part. Yeah, that's the impossible part. Okay. And so once you realize this and you stop with the dieting, then you can start to focus on strategically changing your eating for the long term. What's that look like? Well, I'll give you an example. So in diets, you start a diet, doesn't matter what diet. You start a diet on Monday, you changed everything 100%. In Program Yourself, then you start your morning with a 5-minute hypnosis session that you listen to, ideally within a half hour waking up. So each day you're practicing relaxing, calming yourself down, connecting to your breath, and having good ideas put in your head. 5 minutes. Then you go about your day. And then on top of that, what you're going to do usually is you're going to pick your worst eating habit, right? Your highest calorie habit. Maybe it's snacking after dinner. Maybe it's overeating at dinner. Maybe it's grazing in the afternoon. Whatever, you pick one habit that shows up daily or multiple times a week that's responsible for the extra weight. And we go to work on that. We go to work on resolving it. Not all or nothing. Oh, I'm never going to do it again. No, we're going to find strategies. We're going to find alternative ways of thinking, living, and eating that allow you to resolve this issue comfortably, genuinely. And once you do that, then you can move on to the next one. But everything in Program Yourself Thin is focused and built for the long term. Again, it's not about losing weight. It's about living at your goal weight. So I don't care. I mean, you could water fast is the fasting weight loss possible, other than dry fasting. But basically, that's a perfect example of what I mean. You can water fast for, let's say, a month. Let's say you don't eat any food for a month and you lose 30 pounds. Well, great for that month. The next month, you got to start eating. At some point, you got to start eating, and the weight's going to go up. And when that weight starts going up, how are you going to handle that? Well, most dieters are going to freak out. So again, dieting is a mindset. It's a mindset prison. You're trapped in being overweight because you think like a dieter. I can't make it any clearer. It's not, there's that. And that's why I say that to you, because there's no diet coming down the pike that's going to fix this problem. Do you understand? It's not a nutritional issue. They did a huge study where they compared low carb and low fat diets to each other. Guess what happened? The people that actually stuck to it got basically the exact same results. So there is no dominant nutritional thing. I mean, there's things that'll work better or worse for you, for sure. But ultimately, the main thing you can change to change your weight is your mindset, how you're thinking of approaching all this. And once you do that, everything changes. So, but yeah, if you got any questions, feel free to ask them. No diet is sustainable. Yes, absolutely. It's just true. It's true. I mean, that's why it has such a horrible rate. I mean, again, I do this. Oh my God, I'm going on 3 years now doing this every day practically. And no one ever defends diets. I mean, they might help you lose weight for a little bit, but then you put the weight back on. What's up, Joan? Joan says, I'm eating at home now and realized when I went to a party yesterday, there's so much food out there. Yikes, no wonder I've been so crazy. Yeah, for sure. Of course, right? It was the same way. Oh my God, I went to the party on Friday. It's like, I've never seen a party with more types of chips. And that's a whole story too, like it's funny. I mean, it's the buffet effect. It's a real thing. Again, when you start to understand your own psychology, instead of fighting against yourself, which is what dieting really sets you up to do, you're not understanding yourself with diets. You're just giving yourself a strict rule, trying to force yourself to follow it. That's what a diet is. And with Program Yourself Thin, we're seeking to understand ourselves. What's going on in here? And the more you understand yourself, the more you can strategize. Even sometimes just understanding things is helpful, but the buffet effect, for example. So there's a thing called sensory specific satiety. And what that means is that if you eat one type of food, you tend to get fuller quicker than if there's 5 different types of foods, right? So again, it's the difference between having a meal of like one food, even if it's got 2 different things with it, right? So you get a normal typical meal versus a buffet where there's all different types of stuff. You're going to eat more at the buffet because there's different types of food, different flavors, different textures, they're just different. And that triggers our brain and our body to be able to eat more. They call it spontaneous voracity. So there's this science in the background going on that you're never taught about. And so you never get to understand how your brain and body work so that you can strategize around that, so that you can strategize around yourself in a way that's really built long-term and built for you to live at the weight you want to live at. Instead, you're taught this knee-jerk overreaction of dieting, where you're going to change everything instantly. And the only way you're able to change is through willpower, by, again, being 1,000% focused, being just fixated and obsessed with this thing and letting it become your entire reality. Well, again, if you've got kids, a family, work, responsibilities in your life, you can't make your entire life just about food, and nor would you want to. You're going to just sacrifice everything in your life so that you can be a certain weight. That's not going to bring you happiness. We need to have a balance there. And the balance starts by realizing that, again, that you don't just want to lose weight, you want to live at your goal weight. And that's what opens the door for you to be able to approach this in a much more comfortable way. You don't have to change everything all at once, which is what you keep trying to do. But it's only because you've been literally brainwashed since you were a kid that to lose weight, you got to diet. You know what I mean? Think about it. If you've grown up in America, if you're in your 30s or 40s, you've been exposed to literally 1 million or more diet ads in your life. I mean, think about it constantly. And that doesn't include all the echo chamber ads you're exposed to from other people in your life. So it's conditioned you since birth how to think about weight loss wrong, incorrectly. And it's clearly wrong. I mean, we live in a country where 75% of the population is overweight or obese. So it's clearly not working. And yet there's this obsession with it. What's up, Deanna? Deanna likes the marathon race metaphor. I love that one. I don't know. That one came to me last week, and it's my new favorite without question. I just love it so much. I've never come up with a metaphor that explains the diet mindset so clearly in my life. And I think you all should embrace that, because when next time you start your diet and it doesn't work, I want you to remember that, realize it was predestined. You're never going to win with your diet. Dieting winning long-term is estimated to be, I don't know, 2 to 10% of the numbers I've seen range, and if you've dieted a bunch of times and it hasn't worked, I imagine your numbers got to be even lower chances. But those are shitty numbers anyways, by the way. 2 to 10% chance of keeping the weight off on a diet. Those are pretty bad numbers. Good Son says, how can you lose weight when you have thyroid issues? The same way. All weight loss comes from the exact same philosophy that you need to reduce the average calorie consumption. No matter what, Now, again, listen, there's absolutely real physical realities. Menopause is real. Insulin resistance is real. Thyroid issues are real. Hashimoto's, PCOS, these things are real. Okay. I want to make that clear. However, they do not prevent you from losing weight. They may make it a little harder for different reasons. They may make it slower, but all those issues are not going to stop you from losing weight if you're able to reduce your average calorie consumption over time. And again, I say this, I've worked with all these issues and I've watched people consistently lose weight. Now, again, you may not lose as much weight as your cousin who just started keto, but it's not about how fast you lose the weight, folks. It's about how long you keep it off. And so even with thyroid issues, you can lose the weight. What's up, Sherry? Sherry says, wow, the buffet effect is so interesting. I hadn't considered that, but it makes so much sense. Thanks for that. Yeah, you're welcome. Again, it's helpful to know these things, So it's like for me, I went to a party on Friday, and like I said, there was literally like 6 bowls of different types of chips, all good ones too. But again, I know the sensory specific satiety. So, and I've done this before too, right? So it's like, I know I can get into the rhythm of like this chip, this chip, this chip, this chip, this chip, this chip. I'm going to eat probably 3 or 4 times more chips if I do that. So now, I pick one main chip that's most appealing to me, for that one was kettle cooked barbecue chips. Those are the ones I stuck with on Friday. Okay. Now, right next to it, we're just regular old Ruffles with a dip. I had a little bit of those, but I'm not going to go on all the other ones intentionally. I'm going to skip. I don't want to go on all the different kinds because I know, oh my God, 4 different flavors and crunches and textures. That's just going to trigger the overeating more. So I stick with one chip as a strategy. Because I'm eating one chip, I'm less likely to overeat as much as if I ate 4 chips. So I intentionally focus on one chip, let myself have the other chip, a bit of that. Now that's a gray space strategy. That's an all or something strategy, but that's the stuff that really is going to make the difference long-term. You compare that approach, what I just told you, to someone who's dieting. Now someone says, oh, you can never lose weight that way, Jim. You can't eat the chips. You can't eat the chips. Well, yes, you can. I've been the same way for 30 years. I know a little bit of what I'm talking about here. Yes, you can eat the chips, because what a dieter is going to do, they're going, I'm not going to eat chips. I'm not going to eat chips. Okay. So best case scenario is they don't eat any chips, but now they get to the end of the party and they're irritated and miserable because they didn't enjoy themselves. All they did was deny themselves food the whole time. Now they're irritated. Now their chances of binging after that go way up. Okay. B, they go in there, I'm not going to eat chips. They do eat some chips, and now the whole dam breaks loose. Now they eat a ton of chips. So you have to be careful. The diet mindset is strongest when it's not in the situation. That's why you do this to yourself and people do it to you, because I was, I'm going to eat some chips. Are you going to eat chips? Don't you want to lose weight? You eat chips? Yeah, you can eat chips and lose weight. If I used to go to this party and I used to eat, 3 bags worth of chips, and now I go to the party and eat 1 bag's worth of chips, yeah, I'll lose weight. But most dieters can't internalize that concept. You can logically right now, but when it gets time to actually do it, you get all emotional in your diet mode. So superior and haughty. I find like the dieters are so smug when they're in their mode, right? Is anyone more smug than you when you're on a diet? Right? You're so judgmental and so smug and so perfect and just do everything perfect, right? Dieters are funny like this. And, but it doesn't last. And as soon as it doesn't last, I don't want to hear anything about it, So again, you got to get comfortable in that mid space, but Yeah, buffet effect's fascinating. And again, the more you understand your mind and the reality of what you're dealing with. Listen, folks, here's the reality just on a deeper level. The situation we find ourselves in as human beings in 2025 with our weight is, the way I see it is this, that we've evolved over millions of years in a food scarce environment, right? So our brains have evolved primarily to get food, right? Even more than the baby stuff, even more than shelter and baby, right up in the ballpark of shelter, I suppose. But food is constantly, we have to eat multiple times a day. So we've developed with these brains and bodies in a food scarce environment, and they are fixated and focused primarily on eating. And what that means is, okay, so you end up with that brain, fine. And there wouldn't be any weight issues if we all still lived in a natural environment, right? Imagine if you blew up every, supermarket, convenience store, food processing company on the planet, if they all disappeared like that, we wouldn't have to worry about our weight anymore. We wouldn't have to diet, no problems, okay? The problem is our brains, these old evolved brains that evolved in a food scarce environment to eat as much food as possible when we could, are now in an alien environment. We now find ourselves in an alien environment where we're surrounded by hyper palatable, hyper addictive foods. So we have these old brains that just want to eat as much as we possibly can when we get calories, because calories are so rare. And now we're in a calorie abundant environment. And it's not even just calorie abundant. It's hyper palatable, hyper processed, hyper engineered foods to be as addictive and, appealing as possible. And so my answer to this problem is not to just try and use willpower to fight against this. It's to understand your mind. It's to understand the environment and start to strategically work to improve your mindset, to optimize your lifestyle and to optimize your eating so that you can live at your weight in this environment. And it's a more nuanced, comprehensive approach than dieting. Dieting is remember, Just Say No to Drugs back in the 80s. Dieting is just say no to food. It's a very superficial, ineffective strategy to do something that's much more in depth. Again, Just Say No compared to the rehab solutions they have now. You know what I mean? Like there's no comparison. Just Say No is just this superficial, answer. And then obviously the rehab approach now is a much more comprehensive, approach to it that deals with a lot more stuff. And I think we got to do the same thing with the weight. The dieting is just not going to work. How are you going to be the person who's failed 50 times on a diet, but tomorrow you succeed? Again, if you're not doing anything different, again, I just want to be clear, be resilient, do something a bunch and keep tweaking and optimizing, keep changing your approach. But dieters aren't doing that. Dieters are doing the exact same thing every single time. And it starts to feel like you're on a hamster wheel. And eventually you get tired and you get off the hamster wheel and just quit. Okay. But don't start to understand yourself more and you can get much better results. Nadia says, thank you for all this. You're welcome, Nadia. Appreciate you listening. Yes, I do this every day, Monday through Friday, usually around noon Eastern. So feel free to pop on here, ask any questions you have, hear this message over and over again, because again, you can't hear this enough. Again, I'm trying to balance you out from the diet mindset so that you realize there are other ways to approach this whole thing. And I think you're going to find that once you really get that, the whole process changes. Dieting doesn't work, and it's not because you're broken. It's not because you don't have the control. It's because dieting is a shit strategy for keeping the weight off long-term. What's up, Vicky? Vicky says, doesn't matter how long we've been doing this. We need you to give us a whack. Yes, exactly. Right. We need reinforcement and reminders are really important. Again, in hypnosis, repetition is one of the most powerful pieces of it. HG says, please give suggestions to avoid boredom eating. Great question. And this is a great example of what I'm talking about. Again, if you're a dieter, how are you going to deal with boredom eating? You're going to use your willpower and just not eat when you're bored, right? That's what you're going to do. You're going to get bored. You're going to want to eat something. Your willpower's got to come and say, don't do it. All right. I made it through the night. I didn't eat when I was bored. Okay. I don't like that. I don't like that answer. What I want to do is I want to first recognize that any emotional eating, in my opinion, is pretty much a symptom of a deeper problem. Okay. So let's take boredom eating for this situation, but you can apply anything you want here. So we look at boredom eating on the surface. Oh, I'm bored. And I eat a lot when I get bored. I don't know how to deal with it. Well, I go a little bit deeper and I say, okay, you're bored. There's the problem. And the eating is just a way to manage that. Okay. But the core problem is not the eating. The core problem is that you're bored and you don't know how to resolve that in ways that don't involve food. So how do I avoid boredom eating? I wouldn't, that would be our starting point, but very quickly I would say to you, what are some things you enjoy doing? That's where we would start to get to the solution for the boredom eating. I get this. I used to be a boredom eater too. And one of the easiest ways to resolve boredom eating is to start doing more interesting things that genuinely interest you. It could be a hobby. It could be, you know, you could learn dance. You could read a book. You could draw pictures. You could go for a walk. You could train your dog. You could, practice basketball. You could literally do anything when you're bored. Being bored in 2025 is a crime. You've got way too many options and abilities to learn cool new things to be bored. So you're not going to like this, HG, but I have to say that, boredom eaters are boring people usually. I know it hurts a little bit, but again, the solution is not in how do I get more willpower to fight against the boredom eating? The real answer is how can I have some more options other than just eating when I get bored? Hope that makes sense because this applies to any emotion. I'm a stress eater. Okay, so what's the answer? I have to not eat when I'm stressed? Then you're just going to be a thin stressed person. If you don't eat when you're a boredom eater, you're just going to be a thin bored person. That's not the ultimate goal. Might be a little better, but not by much. And so what we're really looking for is to go to the source of it. So, okay, how can I, when I get bored, what are some things I could do that are genuinely interesting to me? Now, again, I can't answer that for you because you're you and I'm me, but I've gone through this process. I used to watch, this is true story. When I was 50 pounds heavier, I used to watch on average 6 to 8 hours of TV every night. I would pretty much put the TV on 7:00 and watch it until 2 a.m. Okay. And so it was kind of boring. You know what I mean? Like when you really think about it. Because what do I do when I was sitting there? I'd eat, watch TV, eat, watch TV, eat. So, again, it's no surprise that getting a handle on my nighttime snacking was my number one thing I worked on. And, months afterwards, after focusing on it, a lot of times my nights would look like, well, I started playing guitar. I did yoga at night. Sometimes I'd read. Sometimes I'd play video games. I still watch TV, just I cut the time way down and I started doing other things during the key parts that were really genuinely interesting to me and that I like doing. So that's my suggestion to deal with boredom eating or any other emotional eating. That's a starting point too. I'm not saying like that's just the only thing you do, but that's a starting point to it. Because again, emotional eating, it's always oh, thanks, Vicky. I saw that. Yeah, Veronica, I'm going to email her today. I saw she got the program, and I think she said it's working now, but I will check in with her too. Oops. Sorry if I'm missing your questions on TikTok. It like jumps ahead weirdly. Okay, there we go. But I am answering these, and I am live. Sometimes people think I'm not live. I can start talking too long, but I am. Vicky says, is Circle now available to non-members to download and access? No, I saw that, Vicky, too. Not yet. So this week I'll get it going for people. Circle's a community app that I'm starting to use. And if you're a client, you're already in there and go check it out. It's all been tweaked up. It's awesome. And it's getting better every day. But even if you're not a client, I'm going to make it available to you. And I got a bunch of cool stuff in there. Just got to fix a couple things in there. So I will let you know. Yeah, Vicky, he won't be able to get in there. So I'll get that fixed this week. So as long as he's on the email list, he should be fine. Estelle says, hi, what's your philosophy on cheat days? Well, my philosophy on cheat days starts with the idea that I don't like the word cheat days at all. So I don't, I always joke, if you called them adultery days, you wouldn't like that, would you? I don't think cheating has any positive associations for us. So I don't like that word at all. Now, in Program Yourself Thin, we structure our reading. That's the core of the eating blueprint. And we have clean and pleasure days. So instead of cheat days, call them pleasure days. And there's a lot more behind it than that. It's not just a name change. It's a philosophical, it's a much different thing. But I do believe that having pleasure days, if you want to call them cheat days, whatever, I don't like cheat days. I don't like the energy behind it at all. So that's why I hesitate to use that. But one part I do agree on. I think people need variety. I think most people, they start their diet on day one and expect they're going to get to day 300 being perfect. It's too long. It's not going to do it. So I would much rather, and again, in programming yourself thin, it's not about the losing weight. It's about living at your goal weight. So right from day one, we're focused on maintenance and we're focused on how can I live at this weight forever? And I think part of that is having the ability to say, well, yeah, I'm not going to have a cookie now, but I can have a cookie this weekend. You know what I mean? That's what I do. My clean days are basically Monday through Friday afternoon. And the weekend's more my pleasure days. And so I don't really eat much sugar, flour. I don't eat processed food. I don't fast. I don't eat a lot of bullshit on my clean days, Monday through Friday. Now, again, sometimes I do. Sometimes the stuff just gets in there, but most of the time, those days, my intention is to be cleaner. And then when the pleasure days come, I'm more likely to eat some sugar, flour, just different shit. So I think that's really important because, again, I think it's really important, to be able to look forward. So, okay, a couple days isn't that hard to know, like, oh, okay, I'm going to say no to the ice cream today, but I know I can have some on the weekend if I really want it. I feel like that's really helpful. But then almost more importantly is that after the pleasure day comes back to clean days. So every single week I practice getting back on track. So for example, this weekend matched up perfect for me. So every Monday I practice getting back on track. And so this week here, again, I kind of overdid with the food a little bit this weekend. But here's Monday, I'm right back on track, but because I practice that every single week. So in my opinion, the most important skill of living at your goal weight is the ability to get back on track quickly. And I think practicing of having clean and pleasure days, having these two types of days, I think is really important to help do that. So again, I'm not going into cheat days and there's a lot of stuff to unpack with cheat days that I think is really unhelpful. So again, I just kind of restart. In the program, we talk about pleasure days and what it means, and it's a redefinition, but hopefully that helps answer that question a little. Nadia says, what about drinking alcohol casually, socially, but how that leads to overeating? What's the strategy? Yeah, true. For some people, when they drink alcohol, they're going to overeat, not for everyone. Again, everyone's different. So we got to figure out for each person. If for you, now, again, this is why I like to say, I think it's important that we understand our own situation, because one person might drink some alcohol and not overeat. Another person might drink alcohol and that triggers them to overeat a lot. Right. And so for that person, it's going to be important to get a handle on this if they want to lose weight. Does that mean you have to stop drinking alcohol? Not necessarily. You could work on drinking alcohol and not eating. Right. So how can I do that? Listen, folks, if you practice behaviors, you get better at them. But the first thing is dieting has not really taught you to think about your weight as a behavioral issue, which is, I think, very intentional because then they keep you off the track. But once you start looking at your eating and your weight they're really behavioral issues. How do you deal with behavioral issues? Well, you practice doing what you want to do. And I said, well, I practice stop doing things too. Yeah, but that's doing something new too. Anyways, but the point being that, if drinking is an issue, then you work on resolving it. Now, what's that mean? We're looking at improving it. Doesn't mean you can't drink ever again, unless that's your goal. It could be, I did this, because I used to drink a lot and then I would eat a lot. And I said, well, I did cut the drinking down quite a bit, but I still drank consistently, through my weight loss. So because I would drink, but I wouldn't let myself go crazy with the eating. So again, we can do a lot of stuff when we get specific and clear on what we're doing. How we can change our behaviors and the results that follow is really pretty epic. But anyways, all right, when we get out of here, I got a lot of stuff I got to get done. If you're not in my world, please click the link in my bio, go get the free hypnosis session, watch the training I made for you, read the emails I send you. Again, I got the Circle community app will be pretty much ready to go this week, I believe. And that'll be for everyone to get in there. And that's going to be pretty cool. And this is a live I do every day, Monday through Fridays around noon Eastern. If you have any questions, please hop on there and ask them. I'm happy to answer them for you. I am literally here to help you. This is my mission. So I'm happy to do that. And, if you missed that, if you missed the live and you like listening to it, you can listen to it as a podcast. I put it up every day. It's called Program Yourself Thin. It's on all the podcast platforms, and you can check that out as well. So I appreciate that. Nikki says, I'm so grateful for you. Your words keep resonating with me on such deep levels easily. It's refreshing. You're refreshing. Thank you, Nikki. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. And that's why I do this. Again, this is a mission for me. And, I really am here for you. I know that, I don't know, sometimes people say that, but I truly, truly am. That's why I want you to really get in my world on my email list, because I got a lot of cool stuff. And yes, I have a program, but I also give you lots of free stuff to help you as well. So again, this is a mission for me. And thank you, Nikki. I appreciate hearing that because that's why I do it. So, all right, everyone have a super duper day and we'll talk soon. Bye.